Alex Jones guilty on all 4 Sandy Hook cases. I hope we don't have to explain who Alex Jones is. But if we do, take a listen at this clip from Anderson Cooper, who spoke with one of the attorneys for the Sandy Hook families. Remember, that was the shooting that took so many lives from young babies. Alex Jones has been denying it, and well, now he's got to pay the price. Here's a clip.
Major legal victory for 8 Connecticut families and one first responder who sued InfoWars founder and noted conspiracy spreader Alex Jones. For years, Jones spread the despicable conspiracy story that the 2012 massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School, where 6 adults and 20 children were killed, was staged. Here are the faces of the victims, young children, teachers, and the school's principal. They were very real. They were murdered. We remember them. Today, a judge ruled that Jones is liable by default in the defamation case because he repeatedly refused to hand over records to the plaintiffs. Now, a jury will decide how much he's going to have to pay the families in damages. In September, Jones was defaulted in Texas for failing to turn over documents in a similar case. Joining us now, attorney Chris Maddie, who represents the plaintiffs in the Connecticut lawsuit. Chris, I appreciate you being with us. Can you explain what liability by default means?
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Anderson. Today, what the Connecticut Superior Court determined was that because Alex Jones had engaged in a long series of misconduct and discovery abuses, he had essentially prevented the plaintiffs from getting a fair hearing, from getting the evidence that they were entitled to. And because of that, he forfeited his right to present evidence in the case in his behalf. And as a result of that, the allegations against him are considered proven. He is liable to the plaintiffs for the claims they have made against him, which include defamation, violations of Connecticut's Unfair Trade Practices Act, intentional infliction of emotional distress. And now the question for the jury will be the extent to which the families that we're honored to represent were harmed by his conduct. The evidence that he deliberately withheld was precisely the evidence that would show that he engages in outrageous, inflammatory, and dishonest rhetoric in order to drive traffic to his website so that he can profit financially.
So it's the same thing with this whole January 6th thing. They commit the crime and they just don't want to. They're like, no, we're not going to testify. Well, in this case, that means Alex Jones is going to still have to pay some money. The jury is going to figure out how much he has to pay. But I mean, Alex Jones built his entire platform off of saying those 20 babies didn't die. And so now he's going to finally have to pay for it.
And that's about time. And I know that that story has been developing for a while now, and I'm glad that we're here on it because Alex Jones, to use his platforms, like many other people have done, that we see now. That's why I got a problem with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and her conspiracy theories with some mass shootings as well. But Alex Jones these babies died.
Yeah.
He used his platform to say it was a conspiracy. And a lot of these parents had to deal with that. And I think that also washed away the actual effect, the actual shock value for people with this conversation that Alex Jones created, that it was a conspiracy theory. And back then, we didn't have social media to really go and attack in the moment, correct the misinformation. So
it was sit out there for months.
Yes, whatever he put out there, these people actually believed and walked around and carried this over into other conversations. And
threatened, Rebecca, they threatened some of these parents. Some of these parents have been threatened by his supporters.
Yep. And some of these parents took a while to even say, hey, this person has said this about the death of my child. And a lot of it just was like, it's just, whatever, it just happened. So a lot of legal things that were happening weren't even being pushed and pressed for real because they didn't think it was that serious. These people lost their children. These people lost their children. We're talking gun violence too. We're talking the conversation at the time that was trying to be brought up was, the gun violence and us doing gun reform and those conversations, but they weren't important then because of Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And those people had to every single day get online, different pages, different conversations surrounding their kids and their deaths being untrue.
That's right. That's right. And the
So
fact that he
it's
can
about
make a
time.
living, the fact that he can make an entire living off of defaming those babies, that means that there's that many people out there who want to hear that kind of mess.
Right.
For him to become a millionaire, a multimillionaire.
It's like selling your soul. He has no soul, bro. They don't care.
Yeah.
They'll
Right.
do stuff like this and make up rhetoric like this. No soul. Hope
Look,
he gets
Laney Lou
everything he deserves. But
Yeah.
That's right.
Lainey Lou
That's right.
in the comment section said that Alex Jones is the reason for her family's divide. So
That's
even
powerful.
that you
That
see what I'm
is.
saying? And
That's really powerful.
we were just talking about that. These people are put in place to divide and have conversations that are at the forefront, even if they're filled with misinformation. But
That's
it is
right.
these conversations are created to divide here, like in the States and outside the state. But these conversations will lead because they know the platform and how a lot of people believe Alex Jones takes are very important. The same way they believe Tucker Carlson's takes are very important because he
That's
sits
right.
on Fox News desk and he feeds you guys these lies, but because it's coming from Fox News, it's real, it's true. Now these 20 babies that lost their lives,
And this clown has made a living off of him. I hope Alex Jones. I hope he loses some weight because he needs to have some hungry days. Because for you to eat off of those babies' death, I think he might need to know what it's like to be hungry. Because that's some evil stuff, man. His entire and to not make it so much about him personally, we also have to take into account all the people who just they're clicking through. They want that kind of evilness. Like, what does that say about our society? That there's so many people in the world that want those kind of clicks that they will make him a star.
Let's not even go down that rabbit hole. Let's not even go down that rabbit hole, bro, because that'll be a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
There's some sick ass people out here, bro.